Well, welcome back. In last night's presidential debate, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton got a chance to walk around the stage addressing folks there.
And we talk about body language and things like that, but we really got a chance to see it on display last night because they weren't sitting somewhere and having hands on a lectern. They were out walking around. And Craig Anthony, you're a body language expert. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Well, let's take a look at some video clips if we can of this. And you want to start by giving us your overall thoughts on this?
Yeah, it was a very interesting debate, and you're exactly right. In a town hall debate like this, you get to see their entire body. So not behind the podium, there's a lot more information going on from the shoulders down that we can see.
So this is when they first came out, and I was expecting a handshake.
Yeah, well, that was a big debate whether this was going to happen or not. They both came out. Donald walked out much slower than Hillary did. He was waiting for it. She actually turned away first, kind of snubbed him in a way, and that handshake was not going to happen. So she turned away first, and he respected that and turned back and faced the audience.
I could kind of see as he made his way out into the stage, he was kind of glancing a little at her body language and whether or not she was going to extend that hand.
Yeah, he was not going to initiate that.
Interesting. All right, so let's go on now to when the note here that when Hillary Clinton was going after Trump, he shook his head and pursed his lips.
Yeah, he pursed his lips. This is probably the most strongest sign of disagreeing with what somebody is saying about you. His lips actually came together at one point, like this. It's almost like saying the word no. You often see this in court cases when you have a defendant and the prosecution. When the prosecution is making their case, the defendant is often pursing their lips and shaking their head no.
I saw that a few times.
You were
and I
watching
thought,
that?
was he puckering up or like to give somebody a smooch or what's
I
going
don't think
on
he was
here?
getting ready to kiss anybody.
No.
And then Hillary kind of did some blinking. So when Donald Trump was going after her, and it's interesting too that you get to watch the other person's face the whole time this whole thing's going on, right?
Yeah, they do show
Split
both.
screen.
Yeah. And what you'll notice with her, a couple of different things is that her blink rate slows down significantly, and this is an eye blocking technique. It's almost like they don't want to hear or they don't want to see what's going on. So particularly when they're discussing emails, her blink rate slowed down significantly because she was just doing that blocking technique.
Something you saw as well is when she would kind of take a step back and Trump would make kind of an attack type of statement and she would smile or laugh or shake her head while she was doing it, and you thought, I wonder what she's thinking at this moment.
Right, well, she's just using that as a technique to actually for warmth and to dismiss what was going on. She does that, he shakes his head no and does the no thing. She laughs about it, and it's not a really true smile. It's kind of a side to side. They actually call it a politician smile. It goes from side to side, it's pulled sideways as opposed to going up with the eye crinkle, so it's not like a happy smile. It's more of a dismissing smile. Yeah, she's dismissing his comments. Yeah, so they both have different techniques for doing this.
And then SNL had a field day with this, the shimmy she did last time. What's the shimmy all about?
Well, you know what? She was very prepared with an answer for that. She was waiting for it, and she was quite excited. In a way, it's almost like one of the most telling things with people is called happy feet. You've probably heard of that before. When somebody gets very, very good news, their feet actually start to move. They can't help it.
Right.
It's a very truthful tell. The shimmy, very similar to that. The shoulders start to go. It's very similar to the feet going. She was pretty happy that she got, sent that softballs because she was ready to hit that one.
Yeah. We'll have to make sure we look for that next
Do
time.
more shimmy.
Trump also, there was moments where he pointed at her.
Yeah, it was. Now, a lot of people, there's a lot of airtime about him standing behind her. And if you notice through the entire debate, you have to analyze people in their environment that they're in, and you have to have a baseline for them. He stands up a lot, so his baseline is standing. And he was actually standing in position when she was in front of him, and a lot of people thought it was very aggressive, and you can tell by the way they shot that, it looked like he was kind of looming over her. It may have been a little aggressive, but the most aggressive part of the debate was when he pointed at her right there during that exchange. A physical point like that is the most aggressive form of body language when you're actually pointing blame at somebody. So that is a very overt action there.
So who won the nonverbal debate last night?
Who won it? Well, it's very interesting with nonverbal communication. Depending on who you favored going into it, you'll actually interpret these signs differently. If you were a Clinton fan, you'll actually interpret her smile as being dismissive and that this was something that was being lobbed at her. If you were a Trump supporter, you'll view his aggressiveness as his natural stance and that he had all the power and the authority in the debate. So it's really skewed by your paradigm of the way which one you support.
Right.
There was a moment, and Troyer and I were chatting about this a few minutes ago, but where a fly landed on her face.
I did see that.
And most people will probably remember this, but aren't talking about it today because she really
Yeah.
kind of did a good
She
job.
really got rid of that
dismissing
fly
it.
in kind of a cool way. I mean, I would have been swatting all over it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. They're very well trained at doing this. So they're some things are voluntary and some strategic, and some things are just completely involuntary. And those are the more truthful ones. And the fly situation came. She raised her hand to her face. She touched her nose at one point. You'll notice during the entire debate, nobody touched her nose because it's a common thing that everybody thinks that's because they're lying and they don't want to be perceived as lying. So she was able to get rid of that fly very quickly. I think they actually panned away from her. Probably
Pretty
out of respect
quickly.
because they knew what was going on and they knew she was going to have to get rid of it. And they didn't want to have that.
So you
know,
think she's
affect her.
actually practiced getting rid of flies on her face?
They've practiced just about everything. Yes, they have coaches.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're
It
very
is.
well coached in this stuff. Yes, yes.
I've never practiced that.
Tomatoes, dodge this way, dodge
When to drink
that
water.
way.
I thought it was interesting too. Neither one of them had water on the stage. I don't know if they had any behind that we never saw, but I didn't see anybody drink water. And during it, I noticed that they were getting quite dry mouths. About 30, 40 minutes into it, you could
Right.
start to hear it actually.
You know, a question for you. I did see Hillary Clinton sit down and write some notes.
Yeah.
Now, is that sometimes kind of a nervous thing, or is that always kind of, what does that indicate?
Well, I think it's actually more strategic.
It
In
is
other words, it was
strategic.
planned. Yeah, I don't know what she was writing. It could be a debate from her debate experience. So it could be that she was writing some notes about what she was going to come back to later.
Right.
It could have been more theatrical. But you'll notice that when she was done speaking, she would always go back to her chair and she would sit down. He would always retreat back behind the chair, sometimes putting his hands on top of it.
Right.
Sometimes looking down, you can see him there actually doing it. So he was doing a cloverleaf pattern and pacing, which is actually a stress relief technique. So he would go back there, he would stand behind the chair, and he'd be looking down. So he's actually kind of blocking out what's going on with the rest of the audience, and he's thinking and preparing his answer in response to what she's answering right now. So he's trying to gain focus and gain his attention. So some people would perceive that as being, well, he wanted to put something between him and the audience to kind of protect him, so he was kind of hiding back there in a way from any attack. But you'll notice through the debate that he was, aggressive, so he was moving out from behind there. So I really think it was more of a retreat to concentrate before he came back out again.
What an interesting look, too, considering you have a male and a female. It's not, both of the same sexes.
Yeah.
At this level of, political stage here.
Yeah, very interesting. And, I think the height issue is kind of a big deal as well because he's just so much taller than she is. You don't notice it with the podium stuff, but with this one, there's such a big height difference between the two. It's hard to capture that. I know they want to be careful about how, whose name they say first and how they bring them out and how they walk on stage. So it's all important.
Craig, thank you. Interesting
Yeah.
stuff. Thanks for being
thanks
here.
for having me on.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Craig.